Preparing for a digital future and the rise of the machines feels like something we've been doing for decades. But this time, it really might be happening. The COVID-19 pandemic has forced more industries than ever to work out what it means to go digital. And with millions of us now working remotely, bosses have finally accepted that most meetings can be an email. Except maybe Malaysian bosses.
Malaysian companies on the whole, being very reliant on evolving naturally, were not ready for this pandemic.
Meaning, they weren't ready for remote work because they still rely on paperwork and offline systems. So unlike the West, where thousands of remote workers literally moved out of the cities, data from Malaysia shows that most bosses and employees want to go back to the office. So if this is the case, what does our working future look like? As our highways fill up with traffic again, is the digital evolution really any closer? Remote working was once a dream job reserved for young traveling vloggers and cryptocurrency players, but thanks to COVID-19 becoming endemic, it's now the new normal. Some of us have loved it. In fact, most employees said working from home improved their quality of life, and businesses found that workers were equally, if not more, productive at home.
The companies that did very well are the companies that started way before the pandemic in digitalizing. And these are companies that borrowed very heavily from processes that were already digitized in their parent companies overseas.
But the sudden shift hasn't been easy for everyone.
Can you hear me, Judge?
I can hear you. I think it's a filter.
It is, and I don't know how to remove it. I'm not a cat.
While accidental video filters went viral, there were more serious outcomes for our smallest businesses.
It is the micro SMEs that have struggled and are struggling even today to digitize many of the work processes that they have. Because digitizing your work processes involve capital outlays which they may not have access to.
And this is a problem. Because if a business, big or small, can't keep up with progress and take advantage of technology, eventually they can't compete.
I think many companies that are traditional in nature, that have been so successful over the last few decades, continue to believe that that is a successful business model. There is this enduring belief that things may go back to normal. They can go back to using those old business models. I, of course, don't believe that to be the case.
The new business model is digital, automated, data-driven. Known as the Fourth Industrial Revolution, or 4IR, is about how this new technology will transform our economic system and our daily lives. If you consider the fact that you can track an online order all the way from China to your doorstep, we are already living in that future. But if you read the news, people do have concerns. In fact, 71% of us are afraid of being replaced by automation, almost double than in 2020. But to understand whether we should be afraid or not, let's take a look at the 3 industrial revolutions that have already happened. Starting in the 1700s, the first industrial revolution took place in England with the invention of powerful machines run on steam. These machines made creating products like cloth or wood pulp much faster and easier. With more money to be made, industrial factory life quickly replaced the agricultural economy that came before it. The discovery of fossil fuels and the invention of electricity sparked the second industrial revolution, where the electric-powered light bulb made the first night shifts possible. We invented the telephone, modern cars, trains, and planes. The third industrial revolution was called the rise of the digital era, with computers so powerful they could send humans to the moon. Humanoid robots were born, along with the invention of commercial handphones, the World Wide Web, and of course the rise of automation in manufacturing, banking, and communications. Now we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, with advanced robotics, quantum computing, and the Internet of Things. Although each jump in progress creates more wealth and more opportunities, there's always been a sense of discomfort and fear as the shift happens.
As time has told in the last century, technology has removed some jobs, but new jobs are created as a result. So as long as society is equipped, ready, prepared for changes to take place, that will not be necessarily a problem.
So is Malaysia ready for the fourth industrial revolution? If we start with the good news, the country has been preparing for the digital economy since at least 1996, when the MDEC and MSc initiatives were launched. More recently, 2019's Industry Forward policy introduced a whole new wave of financial incentives to encourage local companies to go digital. Since then, reports have shown that Malaysia is competitive in its digital progress, considered leading in the ASEAN region and ranking highly when compared globally.
Unfortunately, it's still a gap between the hard infrastructure and the soft skills. So it's not enough that we have the digital infrastructure, that we have broadband, we have smartphones. It's also important that the workforce is equipped with the skills such as digital marketing. When you have, thousands and thousands of small little shops that are popping up on platforms like Shopee and Lazada, how do you compete? Can they optimize SEO, for example? Do they know how to do that?
One report showed that only 28% of Malaysia's workforce is considered high-skilled, which is why upskilling and reskilling are buzzwords you'll be hearing a lot more of.
Work in the future will require you to be multi-skilled, will need you to be digitally adaptive, but at the same time, these are merely tools. We also want to ensure that these individuals who undergo this upskilling and reskilling, technology-based training, are also able to think outside of the box so that they are able to program these tools for the betterment of all.
And once we do have this highly skilled workforce, our workplaces need to be ready for them.
We have to admit, we have a structural issue with regards to wages, which makes the poaching of our talent so much more easier. Every time our institutions of higher learning produce these talents, they very quickly are able to secure opportunities elsewhere, making it very difficult for Malaysian companies to attract this talent, which then leads to us continuing to do the work we used to do the way we used to do manually.
Both experts agree that government intervention is needed to help companies overcome this. And if we want the digital economy to benefit the whole country, we need to make sure there's equal access to it.
So for example, while we're talking about broadband and 5G in the Klang Valley, you still have states like Sabah and Sarawak who don't have very basic infrastructure. Why this disparity is a problem for the future of work is that people will tend to flock to the centers of production. If the sort of rural-urban migration continues to take place, this will obviously result in huge regional disparities and poverty within those states that don't have that infrastructure.
But we should also be aware that once the right environment is set, innovation comes from us.
Our businesses need to change their mindsets. As the world changes, the message we need to inform to our own local domestic market is that the world is moving ahead. We actually have to catch up. In some ways, you don't do that and you actually die a natural death. And if you do that, like if you do get on that curve, then you can see potential returns in the future.
So perhaps the most important skill for the future of work is not coding or computing, but curiosity and a love of learning, because the world is changing fast. And we can't stop its evolution any more than we can stop billionaires from going to space.